Biggest news right now out of college football is the hiring of Deion Sanders to Colorado. And joining me now from buffzone.com is Brian Howell. Brian, thanks for taking a couple of minutes here. This is a huge story. Let's start by, telling me what you know about the timeline here. I mean, when did this become a possibility, even a reality, that Deion Sanders would join up with Colorado?
Publicly when Karl Dorrell was first fired, I don't think Deion Sanders was on a lot of people's radar. But for Rick George, he said it was right away. Immediately, that's the athletic director. Immediately, he thought of Deion Sanders, and that's when the communication started there. And so, behind the scenes, it's been a possibility for them for a couple of months. And I was skeptical about whether Colorado would actually get him because I thought there would be a lot of other Power Fives coming after him. And, among the Power Fives, Colorado's not a super attractive job right now. But it does appear that this might have been Deion's only Power Five offer. And, kudos to Colorado. They went out, they shot for the stars, and they got him.
What does this team truly need? What will he need to do first?
Well, he's already done the first thing, which is give this program a massive jolt of energy. I mean, they're coming off a 1-11 season where they got blown out in 10 of those 11 losses. I think all 10 of them were by 23 points or more, 10 of the 11 losses. And the last month of the season was brutal. And so, people were leaving the stands by halftime and third quarter. So this program needed a jolt of energy. He brought that immediately. The press conference was unlike anything I've ever seen. So he has got this fan base excited like I haven't seen in a very long time. The next thing he's got to do is bring in talent. And he's already been promising that. He's already talked about, at the press conference, he had his son stand up, who's the starting quarterback at Jackson State, and told everybody that's your quarterback. So I don't know if that's an NCAA violation to do that or not, but he did it. And so he's going to bring in talent here. That's the biggest thing is it's great to bring in energy and all that, but you have to have talent, and Colorado needs better talent.
The press conference was wild. I mean,
Yeah.
not that I would expect anything less from Primetime. It's always been about Deion Sanders. He's the focal point. But what was the local media kind of saying to each other, looking around to one another when you realized, we are now in for something entirely different than what we've had?
Yeah, it was truly like a celebrity was walking into that building the other day, not just a head coach. And I wasn't down in Dove Valley where the Broncos practice when Russell Wilson arrived earlier this year, but talked to a couple people that do cover the Broncos, and they said it was the same type of circus atmosphere as when Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos earlier this year. So, and I think Deion might even have a bigger impact than what obviously Russell Wilson's not doing great this season, but Deion might have a bigger impact as a head coach than what Russell Wilson could do for the Broncos. So it was amazing. I mean, we're all kind of looking around. Wow. I mean, this is a whole new day at Colorado.
Where does he begin outside of the recruiting aspect of this?
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on how many of these guys he wants to keep and how many want to stay. But the previous head coach, Karl Dorrell, actually did a pretty good job with recruiting. I mean, the last two classes have been pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of talent on those classes. And, Jordan Tyson was a true freshman receiver this year that was really dynamic. And they didn't really discover him until about week 6. But he was super dynamic. And then he tore his ACL or I believe it was a knee injury. They've never really told us, but I believe it was an ACL. But he's super talented. They've got a lot of good young players in what was the 2022 and 2021 classes. So Deion's got a lot to work with there. The biggest thing they need is in the trenches. They need linemen on both sides of the ball. And, if he can make a difference there, then he can make a pretty big impact right away.
Do you get the sense from the introductory press conference or just what you know about him as a former player that he is excited by the challenge of taking a program from the ground up and rebuilding them? Not only is this a great next step in his coaching evolution, but it's also an opportunity to drastically improve the record right out of the gate.
Yeah, I got that sense that he's definitely challenged by that. I've seen a lot of people nationally and locally that are skeptical about can he really do this at a Power 5 school? It's one thing to do it at Jackson State. Can he do it at a Power 5? I've seen a lot of people that have questioned him making this move. To me, that fuels him. I mean, that's kind of what's fueled him throughout his life is people doubting him and he thrives on that. So I think he's super challenged and super excited for that opportunity to try to rise Colorado up from the ashes.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's looking into the crystal ball a bit, and there's no way to really predict what he can and can't do. But, what is your gut sense? What do you think he can do? I mean, he's obviously an ultra competitive person. He loves this challenge. It's been ignited, and the program is only in a place that can go up. I mean, do you think he's well suited to turn things around?
Yeah, I do. And, I kind of look at staying in the Pac-12 conference, what Lincoln Riley did at USC this last year. And, he had a much better talent base to start off with, but he added so many transfers, as we know. I mean, that team is loaded with transfers that Lincoln Riley brought in last year. I think Deion's going to do the same type of thing. And, USC went from 4-8 to on the doorstep of the college football playoff. Colorado, I think, could go from 1-11 to potentially a bowl game, and that's a massive jump from where this program is right now.
The bigger story here, Brian, that I think some are talking about is, was this the right move? Only given the fact that when he originally started this journey with Jackson State, he made it very clear that he felt like it was his calling to revolutionize this program and to spotlight historically Black colleges and universities. He certainly has done that and elevated that program and made it the best that it can be over the last couple of years. Some people now are saying, man, you shouldn't bail and cut and run this early. Do you have a feeling on that one way or the other? I mean, it's, I can kind of see it both ways. I can see an opportunity for advancement in a coaching career. And then, I can also understand those who are saying, hey, listen, there's more to be done here. And it's a shame to bail right as things are going well.
Yeah. And I'll say I've not really known a whole lot about HBCUs until Deion brought attention to it. And that speaks to your point, right? But, I asked him that question, why Colorado, after what you did at Jackson State? And he said, hey, I can impact lives no matter where I'm at, and there's still a lot of African-American, players here on the roster. And he also, I think it's a big deal to him that, he's a Black head coach that's hired by a Power 5 school. He mentioned it in his press conference that there were several Black head coaches that were fired this cycle and not replaced by Black head coaches. And so, in his press conference, he looked at the athletic director and said, I thank you for taking that challenge. And so I think he believes he can make an impact in that way. I totally understand the Jackson State side of it, that, hey, you started this down here and now you leave it. And I've seen, people that are much more educated on that topic than me have different sides of it. For me, I look at it and say, hey, at least he was there. You could have never had him, at least for, 2-3 years. He brought that attention and maybe raises that profile into the future. It won't be the same without Deion, but, at least he came there and did that for you for 2-3 years. You'd like to see him stay, but realistically, coaches don't stay for, 10, 20 years like they used to.
What is sort of the buzz and the energy around his arrival?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I mean, there were his plane arrived close to midnight on Saturday night, in the airport near Boulder. And there were, I think, 50, 100 fans that were out there greeting him, that late at night. A bunch followed him over. They went over to the facility. He toured the facility middle of the night on Saturday night, early Sunday morning. There were a bunch of fans that went over, super excited. The men's basketball game last week, before he was even announced as the head coach, I mean, fans were in the stands holding up signs, we want Prime, and they were chanting that a little bit. So, this fan base is super excited about Deion Sanders. I mean, it takes a lot to knock the Broncos off the top perch in Denver. Now, it helps that they're not very good. But this press conference, it's notable that this press conference introducing Deion Sanders happened during a Broncos game. And people didn't care about the Broncos game. They came to the press conference. So that says a lot about what Deion Sanders has done immediately.
Is it possible that Deion Sanders' arrival can overshadow what has happened with the Broncos this year? I mean, it sounds crazy to say that Colorado would be the new big storyline as it relates to football in the state, but Russell Wilson has failed to deliver so far.
Yeah, I think at least for this week, and probably at least through December, it probably could. And maybe through the end of the season. But, certainly the Broncos are number one here. There's no question. But the way the Broncos are playing and the way that this hire has gone down for CU is clearly the hot topic around here. And, I think that, that probably takes some pressure off of Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett, and the Broncos a little bit, that Deion's getting the attention. But, certainly, at least for the immediate, the initial part of this, it takes some pressure off of them and attention off of them.
Yeah, sure. And we know Deion's comfortable with that spotlight. So I'm sure he's happy to have it all. I mean, case in point with that press conference. When do you think his recruiting, his being there, his impact on the program will ultimately yield fruit in terms of positive results for the team? And what do you think is realistic to expect for their first season together?
Well, National Signing Day is in 2 weeks, and so it's going to make an impact right away. I mean, there's already there was 20 guys committed, 20 high school kids committed to CU before this coaching change, and this new staff has already gone out and kind of cleaned house with that. There was 7 guys last night that decommitted from Colorado. Several of them saying that the new coaching staff pulled their scholarship, and so their scholarship offer. Deion Sanders wants to get better players here, and that's his intent. And he's going to weed out guys from the team. He's going to weed out guys that he doesn't like on the current commit list. And we're seeing Power 5 or not Power 5, 5-star and 4-star recruits that have announced that they've got offers from Colorado, that they're now considering Colorado. So I think it could be a pretty wild signing day here in a couple weeks for Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to have you back to talk about that. I mean, is there any kind of murmurings that there could be players of note from Jackson State that would end up in Colorado?
Yeah, obviously Shedeur Sanders, his son, is the quarterback there. Shiloh Sanders isn't talked about as much, but he's a starting safety that started at South Carolina and then went to Jackson State with his father. He could come to CU. But the big one is Travis Hunter, who was the number 1 overall recruit in the country in 2022. And everybody remembers that it was a huge story last year when Deion Sanders got him to flip from Florida State to Jackson State. Well, Travis Hunter, there was already a video out the other night, him saying, "I'm coming, coach." So if the number 1 recruit in the 2022 class now transfers to Colorado, I mean, that's insane. Yeah, Colorado doesn't get things like that. And so there could be a pretty immediate impact here.
It is truly insane to think about the fact that a player of that caliber would land there, but also speaks volumes about his magnetism and the way that he could potentially run a program. I think it's a really exciting time for you guys out there in Colorado. Enjoy it. And, when signing day comes around, we'll have to have you back on to talk about what ultimately you guys have and don't have heading into next year. But thank you so much for being with us and kind of shedding a little bit of insight into what's going on out there. I'm sure it's a really exciting time.
You bet. Thanks for having me.